I'm joined now by the former NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen. He's now founding chairman of the political consultancy Rasmussen Global and is also an advisor to the Ukrainian government. Welcome to DW. So, Donald Trump has held talks in Alaska with Vladimir Putin. He's also sat down with Volodymyr Zelensky and EU leaders in Washington. How much progress do you think has been made toward ending Russia's war in Ukraine?
Well, let's face it, Putin is not interested in peace. He is interested in continuing the war. So what we need now is to convince Putin that you cannot win on the battlefield. You will have to negotiate a deal. So that's why we should deliver to the Ukrainians everything they need militarily and financially.
Key European players want a ceasefire in Ukraine before continuing negotiations. Russia, meanwhile, is making gains on the battlefield and has no incentive to stop fighting. Do you see any way that Russia might be persuaded to agree to a ceasefire at this point?
Only if we deliver all the weapons the Ukrainians need, all the financial assistance the Ukrainians need to push back the Russians. As long as Putin believes that he can win on the battlefield, he has no incentive whatsoever to engage in a peace process. To that end, we also need to deliver to the Ukrainians ironclad security guarantees, a guarantee against a future Russian attack. And to that end, we in Europe should be prepared to deploy troops on Ukrainian soil.
Now, Russia is demanding that Ukraine surrender the Donbas region as one of the conditions for peace. What would losing the Donbas region mean for Ukraine?
But the Donbas region is strategically, militarily so important for Ukraine that obviously it would be impossible for Ukraine just to give up what the Russians have not succeeded to conquer so far. And to achieve a sustained peace deal, it's also important to realize that you cannot force the Ukrainians to recognize the Russian theft of Ukrainian territory. It may well be that Ukraine will have to accept facts on the ground, but that's different from recognizing that theft. And again, the more we can deliver ironclad security guarantees to Ukraine, the more room of maneuver does President Zelensky have.
You've been advocating for Ukraine to join NATO, but the U.S. president has ruled that out. Short of NATO membership, what can Ukraine's allies do to deter Russia from invading again if and when a peace deal is agreed?
I strongly regret that NATO membership is not on the table, because the most efficient and least expensive way to guarantee security of Ukraine would be to grant Ukraine membership of NATO. But in the absence of that, we have to deliver security guarantees that are pretty close to an Article 5 guarantee. I would foresee that the bulk of troops deployed to Ukraine would be European, but backed by the United States that could deliver reconnaissance, intelligence sharing, air defense, maybe some transport. So a joint European-American effort to guarantee security of Ukraine in the future would be pretty close to an Article 5 guarantee.
Back in 2008, NATO issued a declaration saying that Ukraine will join the alliance, and NATO members reaffirmed that at their 2021 summit. As you know, those who oppose Ukraine joining NATO today argue that it would incite Russia. How do you see it?
Well, first of all, we should never, ever discuss NATO membership with Putin. It's not his business. It's a decision to be taken between Ukraine and NATO. It should even not be raised with Putin. And we should adhere to the principle that for each sovereign state, it is an inherent right to decide its alliance affiliation herself. So Ukraine should keep the freedom to decide whether it will join the EU and NATO or not. It's not for Russia to decide.
Now, you were NATO boss when Russia annexed Crimea in 2014. Upon reflection, what could have been done, what should have been done, perhaps, to prevent that and Russia's subsequent full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022?
Seen retrospectively, we reacted much too hesitantly, much too mildly back in 2014. And Putin misinterpreted that as Western weakness, almost an invitation to the next military adventure, which was the full-scale invasion in 2022. So, seen retrospectively, we should have reacted much more determinedly back in 2014. We should have launched full-scale sanctions against Russia militarily. We should have maybe deployed NATO troops on Ukrainian soil to make sure that Putin did not misunderstand the message from the West. But back in 2014, we couldn't achieve agreement, consensus within NATO when it came to a reaction to the Russian invasion. So we did what we could, but I think it was a mistake that we didn't react more harshly.
If the war in Ukraine were to continue, what would that mean for Ukraine and its European partners?
Well, let's face it. We need Ukraine as a bulwark against a still aggressive Russia. Whatever will be the outcome of this conflict, you will still have an aggressive Russia. And we need Ukraine as a bulwark against that aggressive Russia. We need Ukraine as an integrated part of a new European security architecture. So if we allow Putin any success in Ukraine, then he will just get appetite for even more. And according to our intelligence agencies, he might be capable of attacking even a NATO country by the end of this decade. That is what is at stake.
We are at a critical juncture in the Ukraine war. There's the prospect of peace negotiations now on the table. It feels like something could be close. What's your advice to Ukraine and its European partners right now, and NATO for that matter, in this situation right now?
Obviously, I appreciate any process that could lead to a peace, but a sustainable peace. And the first and most important subject is ironclad security guarantees to Ukraine. Secondly, we should not force Ukraine to recognize stolen Russian territory in Ukraine. Thirdly, there should be no restrictions on Ukraine's sovereignty. If these conditions are fulfilled, then I would really appreciate a peace deal. But let's face it, a bad peace will just lead to a new war.
Former NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen, thank you very much for talking with us today.
You're welcome.